welcome to Video DNA, where the English is bad and the tutorials are good. I'm Fractal and today I'm gonna show you how to create this cool seabed effect. Check this out. Well, in this cool tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use After Effects noise to create this great sunshine and this water caustics and this refractions. And it's all in 3D space. And the coolest thing about everything, this is not a really long layer. This is just a procedural layer. And even cooler than that, you can finally drown Jamie from a different angle. Well, first of all, I'm gonna open a new comp. I'm gonna call it Seabed. It's gonna be 5 seconds long, and I'm gonna press OK. So first of all, I'm gonna open a new solid, and I'm gonna call it Fractal. And it's gonna be 2000 by 2000 pixels, and the color doesn't really matter, so I'm gonna just leave it at black. Before I continue, I want to pre-comp this layer, and I'm gonna call this Fractal Texture. And I'm gonna leave all attributes out. So I'm gonna press OK, enter this ginormous texture, and I'm gonna put the fractal noise effect. So first of all, I'm gonna go to the dynamic progressive, which is gonna make it look a little bit like clouds. And I want to scale it down maybe to 70. Now I want to go to the subsetting, and I'm gonna change the subscaling to 70, I think 72. Like the other one. Yeah, looks cool enough. I'm gonna invert it, and I have something that looks like underwater caustics, which is pretty cool. And now I'm gonna create an evolution animation. So instead of giving keyframes, I'm gonna alt click and I'm gonna write time multiplied by 200. So now it's gonna animate by itself, which is pretty cool. And I want it to move downwards, so I'm gonna go to the transform. And instead of giving 2 keyframes, I'm gonna give it the first keyframe. And after a second, I'm gonna give the second keyframe. And now I have this cool animation, but it doesn't last as long. So I'm gonna alt click the offset turbulent. And I'm gonna write loop out like Schwarzenegger, so I can remember where to put the big O. And instead of a regular loop expression, which is gonna make, you know, a jump, because on the last keyframes it jumps directly to the first one. Inside of these brackets, I'm gonna write with parentheses offset. And this will create a relative loop, which means that the loop will continue from the last value. And this way you can control the animation speed with only those 2 keyframes, which is pretty awesome. Pretty useful. Anyway, we have the texture. So let's go back, turn this layer into a 3D layer, and I'm gonna call this floor. And I'm gonna rotate it on the x-axis. I'm gonna take it down, and I'm gonna scale it up maybe 2.5 times. And I'm gonna make it even longer. So yeah, something like this. And I want to create a mask. So I'm gonna mask it by double clicking the oval mask, and I'm gonna press double M. I'm gonna take the expansion. See now that it moves accordingly, which is pretty cool. I'm gonna take this layer on the y-axis, a little bit far away, perfect. And maybe I'm gonna feather it even more. It doesn't have to be precise in these values. You can create pretty much anything that looks good. And now to get more caustic looks, I'm gonna take the vector blur, and I'm gonna take the amount up. Not too much, but something in the middle. Something like this. Perfect. So to create the color, I'm gonna open a new solid layer. It's gonna be the comp size, and I'm gonna take a bluish color. And I'm gonna press OK. I'm gonna change its blending mode to soft light. Looks pretty good. And now I want to create the sea level layer. So I'm gonna duplicate the floor. I'm gonna call it sea level. I'm gonna take it up. And I'm gonna take it above the color solid, which I'm gonna name color solid. Cool. So I'm gonna take it even further up. and on the y-axis something like this. Perfect. And I'm gonna delete the vector blur, and I'm gonna pre-comp this layer, and I'm gonna call this sea level comp. Yeah, it's a good name. And I'm gonna move all attributes. It's gonna be our map that we're gonna use a few times. So first of all, I want to bring a sky image, and I'm gonna scale it up, turn it into a 3D layer, and push it back in the Z axis, and scale it up again, and this looks pretty good. And the sky image is gonna be pre-comped again, and that's a good name. And I'm gonna move all attributes again. So now I can create a camera, so I can move around. And if I try to move, I see everything turned into a 2D layer, which is pretty bad. But we don't need to turn these layers to 3D because they're gonna act all weird. They're gonna be really flat. So I'm gonna turn on the collapse transformation button, which will make it its original space or volume or whatever. And now I'm gonna take this layer, I'm gonna take the alpha from the layer above, and it looks okay. So now I want to give this layer the refractive look. So I'm gonna take the glass effect, I'm gonna put it on the sky image comp, and I'm gonna go to the surface, and I'm gonna take the bump map from the sea level comp. And now I can see that it actually takes the data from the sea level comp and use it in the sky image. And the coolest thing about it, it reacts with a 3D camera, which is pretty cool. Anyway, I'm gonna go to the softness, I'm gonna take it down, and I'm gonna go to the displacement and take it as much as I can, almost to 500. And I have this cool effect, which looks pretty good. And I can play with the shading and all the other stuff, but I'm pretty happy with the result. So you can change it if you're seeking a different look. So now I want to create the light rays. So I'm going to duplicate again the sea level comp, and I'm going to check it on. And now I'm going to take the CC radial blur effect, and I'm going to place it on this one. And this one is going to be called rays. So I'm going to change the blur type to fading zoom. I'm going to change the amount a little bit. And now I'm going to take the center of the effect upwards. Cool. And I'm gonna give this an add blending mode. I'm gonna play with the amount once again. So it looks okay, but it's not there yet. And that's because I don't have enough contrast. So I'm gonna go to the levels effect, and I'm gonna place it above the radial blur. And now I'm gonna take the whites until here and take the blacks to here. And I have more contrast, which gives us these boosted rays. And I'm gonna take the tint effect, and I'm gonna change the whites to something a little bit more yellowish, warm yellow, like something like this. Yeah, looks pretty good. And now I want to change the overall look, and it's beginning to render pretty slow, so I can always take the quality of the radial blur to 20 in the meantime, and then I'm gonna take it up, bump it up again when I need to 50 or 40 when it looks pretty good. But I'm gonna leave it like this. So now I want to change the overall look, so I'm gonna open an adjustment layer, and I'm gonna call it CC, color correction, and I'm gonna take the curves effects, take it, bump it down, maybe just create a little S curve for the contrast. And now I'm getting all this color, so I'm gonna take the tint effect and take it down until I'll have less saturation. And actually that's pretty it. That's pretty much everything you need to see here. Maybe I'm gonna go and change this curve again. Maybe instead of creating this curve, I can create another adjustment layer with another curves effect. And here I'm going to take it down again, but I'm going to create an oval mask, subtract it and feather it. So bottom of the frame is going to be pretty dark and maybe above it. Well, don't forget to move your camera around and maybe give it even a wiggle effect so it's going to look more organic. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you want to see more, you can go to our site and watch our tutorials and maybe check out our cool products that will save you a lot of time when you're doing counters and arrows and timers and anything. So